The night was cold enough to steal breath from the lungs, the kind of silence that presses against the ears and makes every sound feel dangerous. Snow drifted down in lazy, innocent flakes, but the scene by the roadside was anything but peaceful. A police cruiser sat crooked against the curb, its door hanging open like a broken wing, and beside it lay a woman in uniform, bleeding, trembling, and fighting to stay conscious. She had been trained to protect others, yet now she was alone in the dark, moments away from being forgotten by the world. If you believe that kindness can appear in the most unexpected moments, that second chances still exist even when life feels cruel, take a moment right now to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel for more real, emotional stories that remind us what humanity looks like at its best. The man who found her never planned on becoming a hero that night. He was just a single father, exhausted from a double shift at the warehouse, his shoulders heavy with responsibility and worry. His name didn't matter to the world, but to his young son sleeping at home, he was everything. Walking beside him was his dog, a disciplined, watchful companion trained years ago for search and rescue before life had taken a different turn. The dog's pace slowed first, ears stiff, instinct screaming that something was wrong. The man followed the tug of the leash and saw the patrol car, the blood, and the woman barely holding on. Fear rose in his chest, sharp and immediate, because he knew this was the kind of moment that could change everything. He knelt beside her without thinking, the cold seeping through his jeans, his heart pounding as he took in the damage. Her face was pale, streaked with blood, her uniform torn where she had been dragged or thrown. The city street felt suddenly enormous and empty, as if the world had stepped back to watch what he would do. He had every reason to walk away. He had a child at home. He had no authority, no badge, no guarantee this wouldn't put him in danger. But something deeper than fear kept him there. Maybe it was the memory of his late wife, who believed that people showed their true selves in moments of crisis. Maybe it was the look in the officer's eyes, a mixture of pain and disbelief that help had finally arrived. His phone slipped from his numb fingers twice before he managed to call for emergency services, his voice shaking as he explained where they were. But the dispatcher's calm responses felt too slow, too distant. Time stretched painfully, each second threatening to be the one she wouldn't survive. That was when his dog moved forward, alert and focused, nose low, scanning the street and the darkness beyond. The man realized then that whatever had happened might not be over. Someone could still be nearby. Danger could return at any moment. Yet the dog stayed, positioning itself between the wounded officer and the open street, a silent guardian refusing to retreat. The man tore strips from his jacket to press against her wounds, his hands trembling but determined. He had no medical training beyond first aid videos and instinct, but he did what he could, talking softly, urging her to stay awake, begging the night not to take her. Snow continued to fall, melting against warm blood, painting a brutal picture of how fragile life really was. Every passing car seemed too far away, every siren too faint. He wondered if his son would grow up hearing that his father disappeared because he stopped to help someone. The thought terrified him, yet he stayed. As minutes crawled by, headlights finally appeared at the end of the street. The dog stiffened, muscles ready, until the familiar flash of red and blue filled the air. Police vehicles and an ambulance skidded to a halt, officers spilling out with weapons raised, tension crackling through the scene. What they saw stopped them cold. A civilian man kneeling in the snow, hands covered in blood, protecting one of their own. A dog standing guard, unwavering, eyes locked on anyone who came too close. The scene wasn't chaos. It was control. It was loyalty. It was something they didn't expect. The paramedics rushed in, taking over, their movements fast and practiced. As they lifted the injured officer onto a stretcher, one of them paused, glancing at the man and his dog with open amazement. The officer's pulse was weak but present, her breathing shallow but steady enough to give hope. That hope existed because someone who had nothing to gain refused to walk away. As she was loaded into the ambulance, her fingers twitched, brushing against the man's sleeve in a silent, unconscious acknowledgement that she wasn't alone anymore. At the station later, the story spread quickly. Officers replayed the scene in their minds, realizing how close they had come to losing one of their own. Surveillance footage and reports confirmed what the witnesses already knew. The man had arrived before backup. He had stayed exposed and vulnerable. His dog had detected movement in nearby alleys, potentially preventing further harm. The department was stunned. They trained for courage, spoke of duty, but here was a reminder that heroism doesn't belong to uniforms alone. Sometimes it belongs to tired fathers and loyal dogs walking home under falling snow. The days that followed changed his life in quiet, unexpected ways. The officer survived after multiple surgeries, her recovery long and painful but filled with gratitude. She asked to see the man who saved her, and when they finally crossed paths again, the weight of that night hung between them like something sacred. He returned to his routines, to packed lunches and bedtime stories, but something inside him had shifted. He no longer felt invisible. He felt connected to the world in a way he hadn't since losing his wife. His son listened wide-eyed as he explained that doing the right thing sometimes means being afraid and doing it anyway. The police department honored him and his dog in a small ceremony, no cameras at first, just respect. Officers who had seen too much darkness stood a little straighter that day, reminded why they chose the badge. The man didn't see himself as a hero. He saw himself as someone who stopped. Someone who stayed. And that was enough. His dog received a new vest, a quiet symbol of recognition, though it needed none. Loyalty had always been its language. As you reach this moment in the story, take a second to pause and reflect on what moved you the most. Before the ending, we have one special request for you. Please comment the word hope if you believe that small acts of courage can still change lives. Near the end of our journey, if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that ordinary people can create extraordinary moments, please like this video, share it with others, and leave a comment to let us know how it made you feel. Your engagement helps these stories reach those who need them most. That cold night faded into memory, but its impact never did. Somewhere in the city, a single dad walks his dog under quieter skies, holding his child's hand, knowing that one decision turned fear into faith. Somewhere else, a police officer puts on her uniform again, carrying scars that remind her she survived because a stranger cared. And in a world that often feels indifferent and rushed, their story stands as proof that compassion still has power, that courage doesn't need permission, and that sometimes, the most shocking thing of all is simply choosing to stay.